My name is Sunila Abeysekera and I'm from Sri Lanka, and I have worked with a Human Rights Documentation Center for the last 20 years. Because I've always lived and worked in Sri Lanka, I think much of my life and activism has been also in the context of conflict in the north and east, and in the context of denial of minority rights in Sri Lanka, right? So there's a kind of a curious mixture if you look at how I've worked over the years and how I continue to work now. There's a piece of it which is about equality and non-discrimination in general, and then there's a piece which is about women's rights in particular, and more there's also a piece of it which is about the rights of particular communities of people, including women, but not also excluding, for example, people living with HIV/AIDS or gay men, whatever, right? I think the challenges of working in a country which has constantly been in conflict for about 20 to 25 years is that the main frame of human rights is seriously damaged. So fundamental freedoms like the freedom of expression, freedom of opinion, freedom of movement, freedom of organization and association are affected. The structures that are supposed to give justice don't work. So the police is hugely corrupt, and the military has got very used to using violence. The judiciary is under a lot of stress. So the systems and structures that uphold a democratic system have broken down. So talking about human rights within such a context means that everything is a challenge. If someone is arrested, to try and get an indictment is a challenge. If you are trying to organize a demo, it's a challenge. If you try to protest, it's a challenge. And I think that's one of the reasons why more and more we've tended also to focus on international advocacy, because when we are silenced very brutally and often with life-threatening consequences within our own circumstances and in our own country, then I think reaching out to the international community, to human rights groups, but also to institutions like the UN Human Rights Council, to the special procedures of the Council, to the UN Security Council, those are the places where we try to get some traction, try to get some kinds of ways of influencing the government of Sri Lanka and the Liberation Tigers of Tamil Eelam, who are the main players in the conflict, to somehow move to a process of peace, or at least a process of talking about peace, right? Because I think it's really probably the same experience. I talk to women human rights defenders like from Colombia or from Palestine, and I think they have lived with these kinds of situations also, where some things that, for example, people in the US would take for granted, nothing is for granted in our country.